Today I'm going to show you how to make a mix and match pair of hoop earrings. All the beads on these earrings are wire wrapped, and I'm going to teach you how to make a single wire wrapped bead and a double wire wrapped bead, and I'm going to concentrate on pendant beads and briolette beads. Our kit, which you can get from our bead shop, is available with a gold version and a silver version in the same kit. So it's up to you to decide how you're going to wear it, whether you wear single plated or mixed plated. I'm going to talk you through the contents of our kit, and our kit contains a crystal heart pendant, 2 briolette pendants, 4 zillion bead pendants, 4 bicone beads, a freshwater pearl. I have 4 flowers. These are Nadia Minkoff flowers, and I've got them in assorted platings, which are rhodium, gold and silver. I've got a pair of gold hoops and a pair of silver hoops. They're approximately 1.5 centimeters in diameter, and I have 2 spools of beading wire. They're 0.4 millimeter gauge, and I have them in gold and in silver. The tools that you will need are flat nose pliers, my flush cutters, my round nose pliers, and you will also need a ruler or a tape measure. So let's get started, and the first thing that I'm going to do is cut my wire, and I need 8 lengths of 10 centimeters. I'm going to cut it with my flush cutters. Just going to measure the length and cut 10 centimeter lengths. Now that I've got my wires cut, I'm going to start wrapping my beads with the wire to create the loops, and I'm going to start with the pendant bead, and the reason it's called a pendant bead is because it has one single hole at the top. Now this particular one is a Swarovski one, and it's called a zillion pendant. That's simply because it has so many cuts in it, so it reflects the light very beautifully, and it's about 0.6 millimeters. So which is the reason that I'm using such a fine wire. It's a bit fiddly, but you don't really want something very bulky if you're going to wear it as earrings, especially if you're going to put a few together. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be threading my wire through the hole in my pendant bead, more or less to the middle, and I'm going to be folding it with my fingers and pinching it just to bring it together. So now my wires are together, and they've got a little triangle at the top, and this little triangle will protect the bead from my pliers when I'm working on it. So it's really important to make sure that you've got this little triangle. Now I'm going to take my flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to place them where the join is, just at the top of my triangle, and I'm going to bend one of the wires to a 90-degree angle, and I'm going to twist it round the other wire twice just to secure it. And now with my flush cutters, I'm just going to trim off the excess wire as close as I can to the little coil that I've made. So now I've got one single wire and a little coil. And don't worry if you've got a little bit of wire protruding, because we will tidy all of that up at the end. Now I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and place them gently on the coil. Don't squeeze it too hard because you don't want to squash squash it. You want it to maintain its shape, and just give it a 90-degree bend, so you've got an angle like so. And then take hold of your round nose pliers and grab your wire just above the bend and turn it around to make a loop. Then carry your wire through with your fingers underneath the pliers. So when you gently remove your pliers, you will have a loop. Grab your loop gently with your flat nose pliers and then twist your wire around it on top of the two little loop wire coils that you've got there already, and then carry on down. So I've made about 4 loops because this is such thin wire, and I will remove my flat nose pliers, and with my flash cutters I will trim it as close as I can. I'm just going to slightly straighten my loop just to give you an idea. So now I've got my little bead with a loop on the top and a wire coil just underneath it, and my little triangle that protects the top of the bead. Now I've grabbed just above where my bend is with my round nose pliers, and I'm going to turn them around to make a loop, and then I will carry the wire through with my fingers so it goes all the way underneath and round my pliers, creating a full loop. When I remove my pliers, you can see it. And I'm going to gently grab that loop with my flat nose pliers and then twist the wire around, and I'm going to twist it around about 4 times, and it will go over the previous coil that I made, simply because this wire is so thin that if I only do it 2 or 3 times it won't be substantial enough. And then I remove my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to use my flash cutters to cut as close as I can to the coil without damaging it. I'm going to do the same for this zillion pendant. So I'm just squeezing it with my fingers at the top, creating a little V on top of the bead with both wires, one going to either side. I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and place them just at the join. So I still have my little triangle there protecting the top of my bead. And then I'm going to bend one of the wires to make a 90-degree angle. And now I'm going to twist it around twice around the first wire. And remove my flat nose pliers. And with my flush cutters, I'm just going to go in carefully, as close as I can, and snip off the excess. So again, I'm left just with the one wire and a little coil and the small V on the top of my bead. Now I'm going to make a 90-degree bend. And then I'm going to make a loop, follow it through so the wire goes all the way round. And then I'm going to twist it over the first coil that I made and below it to the top of my little triangle. And now we'll cut off the excess. Next, I'm going to use my Briolette pendant. And a Briolette is a classic teardrop shaped bead, and it also has a single hole at the top, but on a Briolette the hole goes from side to side. I'm going to put the wire through it, and again I'm just going to fold it and pinch it with my fingers, so I've got the wires at the top going in a sort of V, one each way, and my little V at the top of my Briolette to protect the tip when I'm twisting my wire. And I'm going to take hold of my wire right at the top of my V and make a 90-degree bend with one of the wires, which I'm then going to wrap around the other wire twice. And I'm going to cut it. Now this particular coil is going to get covered by the coil that comes from the top, so don't worry if it's not perfect. It really is just there to secure the wire and make sure it doesn't open. And now I'm just going to hold on to that little coil and make a 90-degree bend with the wire that I have left. And with my round nose pliers, just slightly above my bend, I'm going to make a loop by bending them backwards and carrying my wire through, really in exactly the same way as I did the pendant before. So when I remove my pliers, I have a loop which I'm going to grab gently with my flat nose pliers, and then I will twist the wire, so about 2 times to cover the previous coil that I've made, and another 4 times, just so that I can get to the top of my little V. And I'm just going to cut the excess off as close as I can. Again, I will check all the wires before I place them on the hoops. Next, I'm going to show you how I wire wrap my heart bead, and the difference with this one is that I'm going to wrap it, but I'm going to make this as a double bead pendant. So I'm going to start off in exactly the same way, feed my wire through and pinch it together with my fingers, creating a small triangle at the top, and a little V shape. And now I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and gently hold where my little V shape is and bend one of my wires to a 90-degree angle, and then I'm going to wrap it around the first wire twice, and I'm going to cut it. And don't worry if this isn't a perfect coil, because I will wrap the top wire around it again. Now that I've got one long wire at the top of my bead, I'm going to place one of my bicone beads on it. So I'm just going to thread it through. Now with my bicone bead on top of my heart, I'm going to make a little bend in the wire just above it, and then with my round nose pliers, which I will grab the wire just above that little bend. I'm going to make my loop by turning them around and then carrying my wire through. So now I will have a loop at the top, which I will grab with my flat nose pliers, and this is where it's slightly different, because I'm going to wrap it around the top of my bicone bead 3 times, and then I'm going to carry it over the bead, and it will just be like a little feature, and then bring it all the way underneath the bead. I'm just going to move my pliers down a little bit so it's easier for me to wire wrap the bottom part, which is in between my bicone bead and my little heart pendant. So I'm going to do about 4 little wraps here, as I've done before. It will cover the first little coil that I made, so about 4, and then I'm going to trim it just as close as I can. And now I have a double bead, and I'm going to do the same double bead to show you how I do it on a briolette and on a pendant, a zillion pendant, and I'm also going to do the same thing on my little freshwater pearl, which is very delicate, but it looks really beautiful mixed together with another bead. So all of these will be done in exactly the same way. So I always start off by pinching the wire with my fingers and creating a very small triangle on top of my bead, because it's a good way to protect it. So now that I've got my little bicone bead on top of my little Briolette pendant, I'm just going to grab the top of the wire just above the bicone bead to make my little bend, followed by a loop which I make just above the bend. So now I have my little loop in place. I'm going to gently grab it and I'm going to twist my wire 3 or 4 times above my bicone bead, and then I'm going to carry my wire through and over my bead so that I can bring it to the underside of it, in between my Briolette pendant and the bottom of this bead. And I'm just going to gently move my pliers a bit lower down so that I've got a better grip. And now I'm going to twist my wire over my 2-coil wire, and I just continue making 4 little twists. And I will cut off the excess. And again, I now have a briolette with a wire twist and another bead on the top. I'm just going to show you how it looks on a zillion pendant, because I've made one as well, and because it's done in exactly the same way, I won't talk you through it, but just to show you that any of the beads that we've used can be used as a single bead or as a double bead. Last, I'm going to show you how to make a double bead with this little freshwater pearl. It also has a hole at the top, very much like the Briolette bead, only it's just very tiny, so maybe a bit difficult to see. And I do it in exactly the same way. It's just fiddly because it's small, and that's why I've left it for the end. So exactly the same way, and I start off by putting my wire through it. Maybe you can see it a bit better now that I put my wire through it. And I'm going to pinch it at the top with my fingers. I'm going to make one side slightly longer than the other. It will be easier for me afterwards. And I'll just cross over my wires. Ooh. Very fiddly. So, have my little V shape on top of it, and gently grab my wires just above it and twist one of them around the other twice So really it's no different to the others. It's just a little bit more delicate. And I'll trim it, and don't worry again if a little bit of it is protruding, because I'm going to wrap this little coil again, and I'm going to put a bicone bead on the top like so, and then I follow the same instructions as before to wire wrap both of the beads and make it a double bead. Now that I've wrapped all my beads, I've made 4 single and 4 doubles, but you can do it whichever way you want. I'm just going to do my housekeeping, which is to make sure that I don't have any sharp protruding edges. It's not easy with this particular wire and these beads because they're so tiny, and to be honest, when you look at them not through a camera lens, the coils look neater, so don't worry about it too much, but you must make sure that you've got no sharp edges that are going to cut you. So in this particular one I can probably just trim it a bit more, ever so slightly, and then just gently squeeze the ends with my flat nose pliers, just so there's nothing sharp that could hurt when you're wearing it. Housekeeping done, and with all my little wire wrap pendants ready to go, it's up to you now how you put your earrings together. I've made a few in silver as well, just to show you how it looks finished in silver, and you can always mix the plating on your hoops, which looks lovely as well. So all you need to do now is open your hoops and decide which way you're going to wear your earrings. So obviously you can just have a single, maybe add another one at the end. It's really up to you how you want to wear your earrings, but that's the beauty of a mix and match pair of earrings. I'm going to use my long double heart pendant, bead on one with a little flower next to it. I'm just going to hang it so it's easier for you to see how it looks when it's finished. And for the second one, I'm going to use my little pearl, my little double pearl, and just a clear crystal one, Briolette, because Briolettes are my favourite cut. And there you go, a mix and match pair of earrings, which you can change according to your mood or what you're wearing.